So now that you've gone ahead and made your project and you have made a part, we're going to go ahead and actually start to make something here. So with pretty much any of these modern CAD tools, whether you've used Inventor before, whether you use SketchUp, Onshape, what are some other ones? If you've used any of the more simple ones like 123D for like 3D printing, or any of those things, almost all of these three-dimensional objects are going to start off with you making a two-dimensional sketch and then doing something to make that sketch three-dimensional, either like extruding, which means like pushing or pulling it into 3 dimensions, or revolving, which is like taking it and rotating it. But it all starts off with a sketch. So you've got 3 planes here: a front plane, a kind of right plane, and a top plane, and then a center point. And you can sketch on any of those planes. It might help to think about what shape you're making. For these widgets, it really doesn't matter. Once you get into more complicated shapes, maybe take a second to think about where you want to start the shape and what features you want to build first. So all of these are going to start over here with the sketch tool. And right now it is asking you to select a plane. And you can pick any of these 3 planes depending on what you want to do. For now, I'm just going to select the front plane. And it's saying that, okay, now sketch 1 is on the front plane. One thing I like to do is just go ahead and turn it to face the front. I think that's a little bit easier, but you certainly don't have to. Now, once you're in this sketch tool, you've got some new buttons up here that popped up. So we're going to use, about the first half of these are really going to get used, and then these last 2. These kind of in the middle, not so much. So your first couple of tools here are going to be the line tool, a rectangle tool, and a circle tool. Those are kind of your basic shapes. The line tool is going to let you build pretty much anything that you can make out of solid lines, right? You can just keep clicking around, making a shape. And the only rule here is that in order to make it 3-dimensional, it eventually has to connect back to where you started. Now, at this point, you're seeing a lot of blue lines in here. What those blue lines mean is that you haven't told Onshape how long those lines should be. And to add in things like that, what we can use is this dimension button right here. It's also that D in parentheses means that you can just hit the D on your keyboard as well. So what I can do there is I just go ahead and I click on any of these I want, and I can say, oh, that should have been 2 inches, and it'll make it 2 inches. Oh, that's also 2 inches. Maybe this one's 1.5. Maybe this one's only supposed to be 0.75. Maybe this one's supposed to be 0.5. And I don't know. We'll make that one 0.25. And you see, okay, now we've gotten rid of all of our blue. All right, there's nothing left in there that needs a dimension. Now, there's a couple of things in here that don't have dimensions. This side here doesn't have a dimension, but that's because if I took this one, and then the 2, there's only so much left there for that one to be. So I don't need to add anything. Look for where those turn, completely dark, completely black, and you will have it. Now, you can keep adding dimensions in here, but you'll see it doesn't actually give me a chance to type anything in, and it's grayed out. That's telling me that that's how long it is, but I can't do anything about it. It's just 1.25. Now, I've also got some other tools. If I'm making something that's rectangular, a rectangle is a good tool to use. I like to start things at the origin if I can help it. And here's another way to add dimensions. As soon as I click, you see that it turned that white. That's asking me to type in a dimension, so I can type it in. If I hit enter, it'll automatically go to the other dimension, and I can type in how long that should be. Hit enter there, and this rectangle is now completely black. It's got all its dimensions, where I just added them right as I went. Finally, we've got things like circles. There's a couple of different types, but this center point circle is the most important. What that one lets you do is you just click where you want the center, and then you click again where you want the outside to be. Again, it gives you a dimension you can type in, so 1.5 maybe. Hit enter, and it tells me how big it is. Now at this point, it's still blue, and that's because it can still move, right? There's nothing stopping it from going wherever I want to put it. So maybe I want to go ahead and put in some more dimensions here, and I want to say, the distance from there to there should be 1.5. And maybe the distance from there to there should be 1.5. And so I've got some sketches made there. Now, for
lunch students are now dismissed for lunch.
for what we're going to be doing a lot of times, something like this is way more complicated than we're ever going to need. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And let's just think about making something like maybe that triangle shape that we were looking at in the sketching. I think the line tool would be good for that. So I know that when I went up, this was like 2 3/8, which is 2.375. So that's how long that is. We've got this kind of slanty line. I don't know how long that is. And we've got this line here, which I know was 1 1/8, which is 1.125. And you'll see that I didn't actually need that slanted line. So I've drawn that shape. Once you have the shape drawn, you can go ahead and finish your sketch by clicking on the green check mark there. And maybe going back into an isometric view. These corners are isometric views. Now, to make this thing into 3 dimensions, I've got a couple of options here. The ones that we're going to be working on right now are just extruding. And so I think I actually have another video on that that you can watch that'll be a little more in depth. But for now, just extrude. All you have to do is just click on the shape that you made. And then you can either type in how far you want it to go, or you can drag it as far as you want. I would use the measurements here, get an actual measurement on there. And then you've got some options up here. You've got new. That's always going to be the default for the first one you put in. Add is going to add on material to your part. And then remove is going to take material away. And we'll talk more about that when we get into talking about adding and subtractive modeling.